Critical Blast, where pop culture gets blasted.
Good evening. I'm RJ Carter, your host at criticalblast.com. Thank you for coming by the LCS GUYS show for a Halloween special. We hope you have a pleasant evening. And joining us tonight, we have from Little Rock, Arkansas, Mr. Michael Tierney. How are you, Michael?
Well, I'm doing great, Boris. I mean, RJ. Everything's wonderful down here.
And from Illinois, we have Max Headroom. Hello, Mr. Headroom. It's been a long time since I've seen you on the telly.
Well, hello.
And of course, this is Dave Dyer from Cosmic Comics in Belleville, Illinois. And joining us new tonight to the LCS GUYS show, we have Mr. Brian Cook from Blast Beat ATX. That's Austin, Texas. Brian, how are you?
I've been feeling spooky and unsettled and looking over my shoulder. So in the Halloween mood.
That's the perfect mood to be in. And then we have a special guest host tonight, my very special friend that I've dug up from the matriarchy over on YouTube, Mr. Matt Reese. Matt, welcome to the show.
Hello, hello. How's it going, guys?
How are you doing?
It's chilling. That's how it's been going. And on that note, I'm going to pick my brain to find some lights in here, and I think I got this started just the way I wanted to. So, with that, let's let the Halloween show commence.
Man, he came prepared. I didn't. None of us did.
Well,
we
were
royally stuck here.
Well, I tell you, if there's anything that RJ appreciates, it's a little bit of flair, a little bit of theatrics.
Amen to that.
Oh, that's my philosophy, that anything that's worth doing is worth overdoing. So this isn't going to be the whole topic for the show tonight, but we can kind of bring it in and out as we go along. But one of the things that almost killed the comic book industry was the horror genre. Those EC comics of the 50s pretty much fueled Wortham's fire to have comic books taken out of the business. So, let's talk a little bit about, the horror industry as it used to be and how it is today in comics, what you see that's selling well and what we're maybe missing that we didn't have before.
Well, back in the 50s, the horror comics that were doing so well, they were really pulling some great stories by top-notch writers. Nowadays, so much horror, they just think it's, just splatter, throw a lot of blood on there, and that people will buy it. It's the story, it's the content, and so right now, about the only horror that's really ever sold in my stores for decades now has been just zombies, and that shtick is just about run out. I mean, people are just zombies don't do the things they used to do. There for a while it was vampires, and then the zombies came along, and horror is having a hard time finding its readership in comics nowadays, at least in my stores.
Interesting. See, and I'm a huge horror fanatic. RJ knows that. I grew up on reading Famous Monsters and reading the EC comics. And today in our shop, I'm carrying the new Hatchet Halloween Tales. It's doing relatively well. I was the only one who carried Cult of Dracula from a little small independent company. I've literally almost sold out of that. I think I have 2 copies left. Creep magazine, one of the greatest magazines that's been put out, and it's done as an homage to the whole Warren publication, Creepy magazine and Eerie magazine. Even some of the same writers and artists who work for Creepy magazine do the artwork and the stories for Creep. Great good shout out to those guys, man. They still are doing well. So it's there. You got to dig, you know, and it's all, most of the horror stuff is small independent companies these days. You're going to have your Marvel zombies, big whoop, but, and DC deceased. So everybody's jumping in on that in some shape, way, or form.
I carried the Creeps. I mean, you know, beautiful magazine.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it didn't sell for me unless it had a Rosetta cover.
Yeah.
I very much agree with it. The zombie thing has about run its course. I don't know about where you guys live, but here in Austin, everyone has very harsh feelings about how The Walking Dead ended. Both the TV show and the comic book wasn't a satisfying ending, and a lot of the other stuff was overrated. But as far as what's selling and what people have an interest in, I divide it up into 3 categories. You got shock, you got suspense, and you got gore, right? So I believe we were talking about these. I throw this in the shock category because a lot of the Tales from the Crypt have that, you know, surprise ending, the killer's in the back seat. This one here, obviously, is not an original from the 50s. These are the Gladstone reprints from the 90s. Okay. And there hasn't been like a major price increase, but they definitely sell between $5 and $10 each, depending on condition, shipping, and all that. And then if we want to talk suspense, I'd say Alan Moore, a lot of the Vertigo stuff.
Yeah.
And then anyone remember this? Here's your gore. Wow. Here's your just 18 and up. Let's go for it. It's story, whatever. You know, just all art.
Tim Vigil, great artist.
Great artist.
Co-creator of that. Love Tim Vigil. Love his artwork. Super gory, yeah.
Dave, next time I come in your store, I'm bringing you this. I'm going to give you this. you need
thank
to
you.
You need to make so much.
You know,
I yell as loud as I can, guys.
You were talking about those EC reprints, how well they sell, and those sold well. My stores, well, I still had them. I mean, those sold better than the new ones. Your new ones coming out on the shelves from other publishers, other than Walking Dead. You know, I'd sell more of those reprints out of the back issue bins than I would of the new stuff.
I'm seeing the same thing, and I'm trying to snap them up when I see them out there.
Mm-hmm.
It shocks me that, like, I mean, those were from the 90s. Like, it seems like in the last 20 years, nobody has, or I guess 30 years now, nobody's gone to print again with them. You know, that's strange to me because they're getting close to being public domain, right?
The last thing I heard about the story was that guy Russ Cochran ended up with all the artwork from William Gaines. It has to be a rights issue in there with that. Yeah. Haven't all those people passed away?
Nearly. They have to. Well,
yeah. Well, then a few years ago, William Gaines' warehouse all became available for sale. And so a lot of those copies have been flooding around on the market now. So they're not as hard to find as they were just even 10 years ago.
Well, for me, the fun that was in the horror comics, I grew up in the 70s and 80s, and the horror comics were anthologies of short stories.
Yes.
You know, you read 5-6 pages, and, you know, the Three Witches from the Witching Hour, or Cain, or Abel, or Destiny.
House of Mystery, you know, suspense. Yeah.
Exactly. And if you were lucky enough to get the Charlton stuff, what was it?
Ghost Stories. I think I found an old issue of that one.
The Midnight Philosopher and Arachne were the hosts on that one. They got to the point. They got to the meat of it. You turn the page. You got your shock ending. Horror, for me, isn't meant to go on for 12, 15, 300 issues.
It has a beginning, a middle, and an end. It's not endless sequels.
Well, and I didn't really follow The Walking Dead, right? So I'm not necessarily asking for spoilers, but the thing it comes to is, like, how would you end something like that? I mean,
don't kill Rick. Can we start with that? Kill the main protagonist.
Yeah, the focal point of the story. Let's get rid of that. We don't need that.
Yeah, but it's just sort of like, you know, you either have to end it with a happy ending where people are rebuilding society, or you have to have everyone die. There isn't really a middle ground, right? I mean, I wouldn't think.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think sometimes you have to give the people what they want, because it's not a horror book, but you know, the Image series Saga, that's kind of like the Iraq War in the Star Wars universe. Everyone hated the ending in Volume 9. I haven't met one person who, I think it killed the book. The ending was so bad. So that's what you want to avoid.
Killed the back issue on it, that's for sure. when that series was running, I kept telling everybody now is the time to sell them while they're
Yeah.
hot in demand. Everybody's like, oh no, they'll just keep going up forever, constantly spiraling up on prices. Like now, when people want to buy it, that's when you sell. When people don't want to sell it, that's when you buy. And believe me, now would be the time to buy because people are going to have to start dropping the prices because the demand just completely went away on that series after that ending, and it was fast too.
Yeah. And they said that the two creators were going to take a year-long sabbatical and relaunch the series, and we hadn't heard from them. They're in a bomb shelter somewhere. I don't think it's coming back.
Yeah, that was
they just started doing the color variation of the original series. So like number 2 comes out next week of Walking Dead in color, and see, I'm a ginormous Walking Dead fan. I love it. I love the show. I love the book. I'm excited that it's in color, even though it's nothing really new. And it's selling relatively well. I still have our, I collect variants and stuff on Walking Dead. So it still is always going to have its core following. And I got customers coming in and we're talking about the new season. And I'm behind. So I'm like, guys, don't tell me spoilers,
Well, at least this time you'll know to buy more copies of Michonne's first appearance.
Yeah, exactly. Or Negan's first appearance. So, and we all know we all got the whole Negan Lives comic when that came out, and I went nuts on that. And then they did the bronze and gold variations and so on. So I mean, they're keeping the blood alive. Kirkman, of course, is doing a couple of offshoot comics down on The Walking Dead that he's doing. Was it Fire? Help me out, guys. Firepower. That's from the Walking Dead creators. So started out great and kind of,
When Invisible's getting a cartoon, I forget I think at Netflix who's something, but that's his superhero book.
Right.
Yeah, but they draw him away for a long time. I mean, Roberto Aguirre Sacasa got drawn away from doing my favorite series ever, which was a horror title, which breaks my rule against saying that horror works best as a short story instead of an ongoing, because this was an ongoing horror. But you remember Afterlife with Archie?
Yeah.
They still haven't finished that open-ended story arc. Yes.
Well, and Archie just came out with Madam Satan on Wednesday. So don't know if you guys were carrying any of that, but that coming out of the gate, it did a lot better than I thought it was going to. And that's part of the Archie horror comic. So that's their side division.
Yeah, they launched into Jughead the Hunger, where Jughead's a werewolf, and then they've got Vampironica, which was Veronica as a vampire. But they never finished. They set, and it's not that they didn't finish it; it's that they set everything up on this huge frickin' cliffhanger of Willie or won't he murder Betty, Reggie Mantle, and then Roberto Aguirre Sacasa goes off to do Riverdale and Chilling Adventures of Sabrina for Netflix. And it's like, wait a second, you've got 2 comic books here that you're in the middle of. Now, I think he finished Sabrina on the show because everything he did in the comic book got visited in the on the television series. But unless people on Riverdale start to turn into zombies, we're not going to see the end of that series.
No, they did just kind of leave it there, didn't they? So, yeah.
The story is that when the trade paperback comes out, they'll have the final chapter in that. But the trade paperback has been unfulfilled for 2 years now on Amazon. It's just like, not announced yet. There's a picture up for it, but no shipping information.
That's what happened with Scud the Disposable Assassin. The last 4 issues came out like 15 years, after the original run of it.
I love that series too.
There's a funny little note that Rob Schrab, the artist, wrote that basically the gist of it is when he was finishing those final 4 issues, here were the Hollywood opportunities I had to pass on. I could have directed the final episode of 30 Rock. I could have directed this Foo Fighters video, all this stuff. It's like, I hope you guys are happy that I did this.
Wow. Okay.
Well, we didn't know him and the other guy, Dan Harmon. They did Community, and then they did Rick and Morty. So they're big wheels at the Cracker Factory now.
Yep.
Oh yeah, yeah. But horror and comics, they've gone together for almost forever, almost since there've been comics. I mean, I think the first Batman
story was him against the Mad Monk. Wasn't that some sort of a?
Well, it wasn't the first, but it was in the first couple years.
It might have been Batman 1, but not Detective.
Oh, yeah. I think you're right. I think you're right about that. I think it may have been Batman issue 1. Yeah.
And I love how, I'll walk into Dave's shop and the first thing that you'll see right there as you come in is that big life-size Vampirella cutout with the book pockets in it for Vampirella, and he's got the creepy magazines and the famous monsters of Filmland and all those things. So, and then of course Frank is still there, right?
No. I got rid of Frank a long time ago. I got rid of him last year, I think. I miss him.
I'll tell you what, RJ, it's just blame the coronavirus. That's what it has to do.
I came up with a stupid idea that everything was for sale. And this guy came in during Halloween last year, and he's like, hey, how much for that? And I'm like, $50. And he's like, okay. And I'm like, fuck. And now I'm like, why did I get rid of Frank? Damn it.
Well, he had a full mannequin with a rubber Frankenstein head on it that was just this gorgeous pullover mask.
Yeah.
And now it's quite
I don't have the animatronic Frank anymore. So yeah, I still have those. So, but yeah, I still, no matter what time of year, there's always horror in my shop. It's just the way I am.
Well, and I think part of that, I was going to say, I think part of that trend that horror has just always been part of comics is because, comics, they're rooted in American, at least our understanding of comics, is rooted in American sci-fi, which drives a straight arrow back to Frankenstein, right? So Mary Shelley's Frankenstein it's not the first horror story, but it is the first science fiction story. I would contend that. And it's 100% gothic horror and science fiction. So I don't think you can do superheroes without science fiction, and you certainly can't do science fiction without horror. So, they're best buddies, right?
I think the medium of comic books with the still artwork lends itself to horror because you can have the shadow perfect. You can have the wrinkle in the curtains perfect. Yeah. Every now and then, if you watch, what was it, the Bram Stoker's Dracula with Keanu with a surfer accent and he's smiling, that kind of ruins it, doesn't it?
In my stores, I had this giant animatronic werewolf that would howl and his eyes would light up and his jaws would move. Well, when I closed down the stores, the last two things I sold, and the guy put him in the back bed of his truck there. And it was a funny sight as he was driving away with my animatronic werewolf lying down the back and my Batman mannequin in the costume next to it. I was thinking, that looks like Bruce Wayne's, next morning after, my hot girl from last night, she's this, what she really looks like. It was the strangest sight to see Batman in the back bed of a truck with a werewolf.
If I would have known that, Michael would have drove out to Arkansas and bought it and put it in the back of my car.
I'd have gone with you.
Yeah, every day this month, of course, I've played nothing but horror films in the shop. We've had in-depth discussions about why Universal Pictures can't get their shit together and reboot their franchise when everybody else seems to be able to reboot their crappy franchise. And look, we love it. We love it. And we celebrate it because think about some of the greatest artists started doing horror comics. Bernie Ryson, Frankenstein. It's like it was so wonderful. I got this edition of Frankenstein, the book by Mary Shelley, with artwork by Bernie Ryson, and it was all of his original panels that he did. That book didn't even make it 24 hours in my shop. Sold like that. And I'm like, why did I buy a case of these damn things? Yeah, that's cool. But that's not the one I'm talking about.
This is a new one. I don't even know if this one's out yet. This is The Adventures of Mary Shelley's great-great-great-great-great-granddaughter.
It's awesome. I love it.
It's pretty cool, but it has some of its drawbacks. And we put a review up on criticalblast.com. If anybody's interested in our opinions, you can go there after the show, not now.
Michael's got similar to what I'm talking about.
Oh, let me give him full screen here.
Yeah, this
look at that. Michael, you're killing me. You suck.
Oh, man.
Those pictures. Yeah, look at that.
That's right.
Beautiful black and white.
That was Bernie Ryson, man. Yeah, Bernie's one of my favorite horror artists out there. What he does with that, with the monsters and dinosaurs, forget about it.
Oh, his pen and ink work was just fabulous there. The
Oh,
detail.
what? Look at that. Look at that.
He's drawing blades of grass, for crying out loud.
Yeah. That's intense.
It gives me goosebumps.
I was talking to a person who watched Bernie Wrightson work one time and said he sat there and watched him take his quill or his brush, roll the ink, get the ink just right, and do one tiny stroke, and then start the whole process over again.
Yeah.
Very time
Well,
consuming.
and you guys are talking about the whole Gothic element. Nobody beat Bernie Wrightson when it came down to creating that Gothic element in illustration. I mean, one panel told the whole story right there. Just outstanding stuff. Really is.
I think the creepiest thing I saw Wrightson do, obviously, in Swamp Thing, because I was a huge Swamp Thing fan, was when he introduced the Patchwork Man, which was really Frankenstein, is what it was, the Frankenstein monster, at least. That stuff was awesome. John Kilgallen in the chart and now in the chat brings up an interesting topic. Says the horror pulps, Weird Tales. That's where we got Conan serially from Robert E. Howard. It was a horror magazine, and we started getting chapters of Conan out of that. So something else.
John and I just recently got a bunch of the. You guys remember the magazine format of Conan the Barbarian that Marvel put out, right?
The Sabbath sort of Conan.
Our favorites. Everybody loves those, and I got a whole stack of them in. And John was looking through them, and I mean, we were just celebrating the covers and the artwork. And I'm like, is that John Buscema, or is that Sal, or who's right? You know, who did the artwork for that one? I mean,
I think that was John.
Well, John did a lot of them, and then I forget who else did some of the other ones. But I mean, it's amazing stuff. And that's what I feel is really lacking today in a lot of the work we're seeing. I mean, Pete Momoka gets a $1 billion licensing with Marvel so that they can charge more for a damn comic. I mean, give me the Buscemas again. Give me Jim Lee. Come on, man. He's Bernie Wrightson.
You talk about Robert
simple.
Howard. I just finished working on I'm doing a Robert E. Howard art chronology, 4 volumes. And the first volume is all the pulps. And I just finished the Weird Tales section, which, if you want to talk about horror, I've been going through pages and pages of that lately.
Yeah.
And he did a lot of great horror work. He invented the sword and sorcery genre, kind of invented the weird Western genre. I mean, Howard, what was good about him is he would do 2 genres and he would blend them together to create something new. Sword and sorcery. You know, kind of like, if you think about the horror that has left modern age, would be like Weird War, or, you know, remember the DC had that long-running series about the military fighting monsters on Monster Island and things like that.
Yeah, Weird War Tales.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah,
I had to look up the name a minute ago, but Ghoulish Graham Ingalls, that was an artist who always impressed me. And I was bored one time on Wikipedia and looking him up. You mentioned Frederick Wortham earlier. One case could be made that Frederick Wortham ruined Graham Ingalls' life, but another case could be made that his alcoholism and laziness ruined his life. But he didn't stick with comics. He ended up moving to Florida and becoming one of those guys. You could pay him $10,000 to make a painting of your horse. He just had a different life after EC.
Weird Tales. I wish I still had the rejection letter back from when I was struggling to get something published. I had a Christmas story that basically cast Santa Claus as every year he's performing penance for an act of pedophilia that he committed centuries ago, pedophilia and murder. And I got the rejection letter back from Weird Tales because I'd submitted it to them. And all I can remember is the first sentence. While we occasionally publish pieces in bad taste.
Wow.
That's savage. That's savage, RJ. That's brutal. And
I had been encouraged by the folks in Francis Ford Coppola's website, Zoetrope. It was a workshop. I said, this is the weirdest Christmas story we've ever read. This has got to get published somewhere. I'm like, oh, let's go to Weird Tales. They didn't like it as much as you guys did.
That would be one of those things where it'd be just like, maybe writing's not my art. Maybe
if at first you don't succeed, skydiving's probably not for you.
Well, thank God, RJ, you're a great editor and you got great ideas.
Yeah.
Well, that's my thing. I have big ideas that I can give to other people to do.
Well,
as long as that's not your only idea, then that's probably okay.
so you get the rejection letter about the one script because they think it's too edgy or whatever, obscene, this, that. But what about a publisher? The one that immediately comes to mind is Avatar Press, where it's just anything goes over in that place, but the quality varies wildly. They, don't have I don't think they have a reject button. They just take everything. Or am I reading that wrong? Okay, I don't think so.
I've been in Avatar Press. The last time I was looking at Avatar Press explicitly, and Michael, you'll remember this because I was living in Arkansas at the time. They had some issues with Bud Root and some other artists who they were not paying, and I was working for a different. I was not owning a comic store writing site at the time. I worked for a different one. I was a peon, and I was writing that story about these artists who were not getting paid from Avatar, and Avatar's still around. All the artists got paid. I'm sure I had nothing to do with that, but I'm going to take the credit anyway.
Squeaky wheel.
Somebody's got to take the credit, RJ. Somebody's got to.
Yeah. William Christensen was not happy with me, I know, but we kept things civil, and it was a decent discussion that we had, and it was water under the bridge now. So, but the thing with Avatar and their horror is that it was the covers are always A-list artists, and the interiors were always fresh out of whatever art school we had. I haven't quite figured out how to draw comics yet.
Yeah, there's a series called Cross that I got like 20 issues out of the quarter bin once, and very much the case. The covers are great. If you get to the inside, it's, it's all shocking. Look, a severed head, but this is some real 12th grade kind of artwork. Marvel's not publishing this.
So it's not on the caliber of something like what Zenescope's been putting out.
No.
And RJ, they run, Zenescope's have been doing like the Van Helsing series, Monster Men, that kind of stuff. And somehow they blend the horror into an ongoing comic series, but then they do like maybe 5-6 issues and then they start over, So like Van Helsing versus Dracula. But
yeah.
The greatest artists are working for Zenescope. I love their stuff. And it sells really well in our shop. But it's always an ongoing thing, And it has more elements to it.
Well, think about that kind of ongoing thing. That's what Marv Wolfman, with Tomb of Dracula for Marvel back in the 70s. I mean, that's what kind of made his name,
Good stuff. Good stuff.
Now, Zenescope has tried to do the old school anthology thing again with at least, if not an anthology, at least a one and done kind of thing with their Grim Tales of Terror.
Yeah.
That was going well for a while because it was. Then they started getting into 2-parters, and now I've still got the PDF. I've got a review here for the quarterly, which is their Halloween issue.
Yeah, and I just got it into the shop, and I think I have 1 issue left. So I sold through a good stack of those. So, it's all about how our customer base is, of course, but what we're all into. I'm a horror guy, so of course I'm gonna do it. That is a great book. That version of Twisted Tales is amazing.
Yeah, I got this when I was 14, and it twisted my life.
Yeah, those are hard to get, guys. Those are hard to get.
I wish I still had it. That PC Comics. I don't. This was a side benefit of growing up in Sparta, Illinois, where everything was printed, and PC was just coming out, and suddenly I had. It wasn't just PC. This was when this 1 month I discovered that there were books like American Flag, Ms. Mystic, Star Slayer, and Twisted Tales, and it was just it was a watershed moment in my comic book collecting career. E-Man.
I sold those Twisted Tales when I first opened the shop. And now it's like one of those moments again where I'm kicking myself for getting rid of them because now I want them again. Because great artwork. Come on. It's got boobies in it. I'm fine with that. It's awesome. You know?
I think I actually have. I think I bought that book from you, Dave.
See, you're the damn culprit.
Talk amongst yourselves. I will be
Well,
back.
you said the magic words that I look for, because I think the difference between me and the other retailers is I don't deal in new products. I don't have a diamond account or any of that stuff. I'm, way secondary market. So I'm looking for things like we sold out. The print run sold through. It doesn't need to be 1 million copies, 100,000 or whatever. It needs to not have a box of them left over collecting dust. So and that's not just for horror, that's for everything. And yeah, I'm always excited to hear those. And I've often wondered about, the pre-image, pre-eclipse, like 70s and 80s independents, like First and Pacific and all them. Are the big bulk print run of those, have those finally dried up? I'm not seeing them around like I used to.
What titles are you talking about?
Pacific Comics, First Comics, things like that.
Yeah, like the first 12 issues of Gru, those seem to have vanished. American Flag's starting to go away. Sable, that kind of thing.
Sable, I still have some in my dollar bin. Gru is one of those weird little things like Sabbath, where it has this weird cult following, and I put it in the dollar bin, and they're gone. They're gone. So,
it's
like
weird
I
how
know.
big they get, yeah. It's like I couldn't sell Futurama comics in my stores for $4 in back issue bins. I put them on line on eBay, and I'm selling them for $15 a pop. It's crazy.
Yeah.
eBay's a different market.
eBay's a way different market.
Great group of people you got, because we're talking about a comic book store, online guys, and I'm blowing out, Michael, what you're selling for $15. I'm blowing them out for $1. But we're in a COVID world now, guys. I'm trying to make $1. I don't want my shit sitting there collecting dust. If a collector wants a Gru and I've got a stack of them and they're the upper, like in the 40s and 50s and 60s and so on, I'm getting rid of them, so I can make room for other stuff. And it's no different than my record store. My record store is $1, $3, $5, and if it's a double record set, it's $8. I clean and restore every fucking album that comes in. I bag every one of them. So you feel like you're getting more bang for your buck. And so if it's a rare album, of course, I will charge more. Came out today, Junkin, and these people are charging full retail for a used album. I'm just like, I can't wrap my head around that. Because
you wouldn't believe the pretty penny I'm making off vintage concert T-shirts. And a lot of this stuff is ones I own. I've had them for 15, 20 years. They've been in the washing machine 1 million times. I wore them to work, and they're selling for like a brand new shirt or more. I don't get it. I'm not giving the money back, but I don't get it.
And I got a friend in Vegas who does the same thing that you do. He goes junking to the vintage stores, buys up shirts for a couple of bucks or concert ones, and puts them for $25, $30. And
bands I honestly don't like. People at Poison and Winger, they have fans.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, they do.
Well, and I think there's also a market for people that don't like Poison and Winger, but just want to look like they like Poison and Winger. I
think it's like the cute hipster dummy girls. We have ACL Fest, so we have a lot of them around here, and yeah, they wear it to the concert. And
I think if you haven't lived through Winger, then maybe you could like them. Maybe that's the ticket.
They don't remember MTV in 1989 with all that Bon Jovi and Whitesnake all over the place.
Oh, I do.
Oh, I know.
I do.
So I sold a Pat Benatar Crimes of Fashion album the other day for $5. I saw the same album today for $25. And it was the worst condition than mine was. And I'm like, you know, sure, I can price gouge every customer that comes in, but then my reputation goes to shit. And the only thing I've got is my pride and my reputation and a beautiful wife and daughter and a dog. Anyway, you get the point.
Yeah.
But
well, there's something to be said for repeat customers. You know, if you can get that same guy to show up week after week after week, that's how you make your money, I think.
I do that to the customer experience, and you touched on it earlier, condition. I'm accurate about condition, and I really don't like selling things that aren't, you know, on the PSA scale, like 9s and 10s. To me, an 8 is a regular item. You know, it may be a million. You know, X-Men #1. There's a million copies. This is going to be one you could send to get graded. That, you know, I offer that kind of a difference.
Awesome. That's awesome, Brian. Good for you.
Oh, yeah.
Brian, what are you getting for concert shirts for Nickelback and Creed these days?
Honestly, okay, depends on what side of the fence you're on. I'm class of '95, so I'm there for all the grunge, all the new metal, all the rap metal. I love that stuff. That has come roaring back into style. Korn, Limp Bizkit, the Deftones, Pearl Jam, Nirvana. So, yeah, probably about 5 years away from the big Nickelback revival. And I know that sounds silly, but it's coming. Godsmack, Disturbed, right around the corner. And then you got the bands, the Vines, the Strokes, the Hives. That's coming around the corner too. It's 20, 25 years. Just mark back your calendar to whatever was popular 20, 25 years ago.
Well, yeah, because all the people that they were targeting when they were new didn't have money. And 25 years later, they got the money, they got the job. They're like me. Said, I'm going to go back and get that thing that I couldn't get when I was a kid that I wanted really bad and no one would get me.
Yep.
And my money, and I'm going to buy.
Yeah, I was I was thinking closer to 10 years, but that's probably right on as far as that goes.
Because it's and then they also have kids, so you have a thing where people are taking their kids to the concerts.
Yep.
That band Ministry, he said it's weird because 3 generations of the family will come to see us now.
What do you got there, Dave?
BG's live, man. It's pristine condition.
That is shiny, man.
This is a tough one to get.
Is that vinyl?
It looked like a live album.
Yeah, BG's live from circa 77, so the height of their popularity. Yeah.
Before they went and made Sgt. Pepper's then, right?
They did that a year later, and don't shit on Sgt. Pepper. I love what they did.
Well,
we won't talk about that then.
The music investment tip of the week. Are you right? You ready for this? Who remembers Laura Branigan? She sang Gloria and Self-Control back in the 80s.
Yeah. Brother, I'm right next to you.
We know Laura Branigan intimately this past year.
Yeah, that's right. Y'all are in St. Louis. Y'all know the story about the hockey team. There is a whole new life behind her music because of that. Yeah, pull those out of the dollar bin. Those are not dollar bin records anymore.
Oh, I know. But that's why I can't find them. So yeah, I've never found one yet. They're all smashed up.
There you go. Market with a vote on that one.
Yeah. I'm going to show you guys another one, Michael. You're going to love this.
Okay.
You guys talk amongst yourselves.
Okay. So, Michael, you're doing the Robert E. Howard book right now. How far have you got to go on that before you pick up your next creator?
Ooh, wow. It's matter of fact, the publisher's already trying to talk me into the next 2 chronologies after that. I'm like, wow, I've still got to get this thing done because this is such a massive, massive project. You figure it's probably going to be about 1,500 pages, probably maybe 6,000-7,000 images. I'm up to like about page 85. So out of 1,500 pages, I've got quite a ways to go.
Long way to go. Is H.P. Lovecraft on your list of people since it's Halloween and we're?
Yeah, that's what I think about doing. Yeah, he was wanting me to do Michael Moorcock, and I was like, well, actually, I've got a better collection of H.P. Lovecraft than Moorcock.
All right, guys, here, Michael.
Oh, look at that!
Oh, wow!
Where's Jay Ackerman?
Yeah,
first time.
This was in Famous Monsters magazine back in the day. This is a tough one to get. and we played it about a week ago at the shop. It's beautiful. I mean, just look at that. Look at that.
Oh man,
that's amazing.
Yeah, and it's so funny because it's kid oriented, but it's just a beautiful piece of history, you know. Especially with Famous Monsters, which we carried, basically stopped. What it was about? It was late last year. They stopped publication.
Yeah,
so, yeah. But yeah, it's great. Good stuff.
You know, you talk about different albums and things that people don't hear a lot. I did kind of a mix tape or CD about pulled cuts off a lot of different albums and played my store. I was always stumping people with this one cut. Like, can you identify what this was? And the title was "Music to Watch Space Girls by Leonard Nimoy.
Yeah.
Nobody knew what that one was.
Terrible spoken word kind of stuff, and I don't have that.
I've been singing that one. It was just a
song. I'm trying to find that for my collection. So Brian, you find any of that Star Trek stuff, let me know.
Yeah, how about the solo William Shatner stuff? You need any of that?
I want that too, bro.
People buy those, but I don't think they're listening to them. I think they put them in the frames on the wall or get them autographed. I shudder to think they're listening to them.
Well, any Star Trek, any Star Trek fan, that's what they want. They want that. It's like the Holy Grail, you know.
Didn't Nimoy play the theremin?
I've seen it played before, but if you've ever heard of a band Converge, they're a really outside the box punk band.
Yeah.
They used one just to do it.
One
of those, yeah.
Wow. I've had a project in my head for years, and my buddy and I wrote like a pulp science fiction piece. It's set in 1951. And I desperately want to get a soundtrack recorded for it with theremin, but I don't have the kind of scratch to make that kind of a thing happen. But I've had this space opera in the back of my head for a couple of years.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So RJ, there's a great little segue. What are some of the great horror albums of the last few decades?
Oh, I had somebody. Damascus Mincemeyer, real name as far as I can tell.
I gotta hit the pause. Give me one moment. I'll be right back.
But
Brian's up for the challenge.
He's probably got a stack of them. For me, obviously the first thing that pops into mind is Toccata and Fugue in D minor, because everybody plays that. Vampires are even sick of it. The Exorcist probably has the best theme of any horror movie I've ever heard.
Tubular Bells. Right. Yeah. So there's a band that Dario Argento always used.
Ooh.
And the name is escaping me. I don't have my phone down here. But Brian, maybe you can help out. What was the band that did all the soundtracks for Dario Argento's music?
Zombie, but Goblin. Goblin was their original name.
Goblin,
and then
that's
they became
it.
Zombie. Yep.
Yeah, Goblin. Great. Amazing frog Italian band.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it was all that doom and gloom kind of stuff. I mean, just really great. And then you got Vangelis, who did some great soundtracks as well. So, especially if you think about that really sad, was it the Keep? Remember the movie The Keep? Anybody remember that?
No.
The Keep?
No, The Keep. K-E-E-P.
Oh,
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the soundtrack was done by Vangelis, and it was amazing soundtrack.
The only thing I can remember from Vangelis, of course, is Chariots of Fire.
Yeah, that's crap.
Yeah, I know. It made the songs.
That poor guy just was great being known for that crappy ass soundtrack. When he did so many other amazing soundtracks. So,
but when you said horror albums, I thought of what about a horror band that everything they've done is horror related. Mm-hmm. So we all know this one, the Great Black Sabbath, right?
Right.
And they started their sound by the story goes they were rehearsing across the street from a movie theater in Birmingham, England. and there was a big, huge line of people to see a zombie movie or something. It's like if people want to see a scary movie, maybe they want to hear scary music. Turns out they do, which brings me to this band, Cannibal Corpse, one of my favorites, a very brutal death metal band, but their lyrics and whole concept is horror related. It's not real. They don't talk about politics or any of that stuff. It's all fiction, but it's scary music as opposed to scary movies. And this is a band with a fan. I can't believe a band that sounds like this, plays arenas, has gold records, is a mainstream band for as extreme as they are. Like that, it may not be $100 records, $1,000 records, but their stuff's never going to go down as they've kept all their fans over the years.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of horror themed bands out there. You've got the Cramps, a lot of their stuff. Was very much into that, and of course, I love the psychobilly sound. I mean, you can't. Goodness sakes, that was that was an unfortunate story. Them having to, with Lux passing away and everything. But man, there was something special on the history there. But you got the Misfits, of course, with their whole thing, and Grave Robber.
Yeah,
what?
Grave Robber. Rob Zombie, of course, is I guess carrying the torch on, even though now he's kind of out the pasture and he's got to pass the torch on to something new. But yeah, I mean, we go back to Alice Cooper. You know, the godfather of the whole theatric horror industry on music. So definitely. So what do you got, Michael?
I was looking for an album, but I couldn't find it. I had a great Frank Frazetta cover called Dust, and it had a song I thought was kind of funny about a guy trying to commit suicide by playing his electric guitar in the rain.
Oh, wow. Wow.
A great Frazetta cover.
Well, I guess it's also where, I don't know, if you're into this stuff, you got to keep your vocabulary straight, right? So if we're looking about the word horror, I could think of a ton of bands, like the black metal bands from Europe, like Mayhem and Emperor, Devuboyer, and all them. They're really, really scary, but that's because they're openly satanic. That's not a horror fiction thing. They're real. So that's a different story.
We're talking like Norwegian metal.
Yeah, that thing
came out of where Venom and Mayhem and all those guys where they actually sacrificed animals and burned churches down.
With a prison.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And I even like some of that kind of crap,
I think they would be offended if you called them a horror band, Like, that's not what we do.
Okay.
They would sacrifice me if I did that. So
yeah. All those bands can't hold a candle to Bobby Boris Pickett and the Crypt Kickers.
Amen. Woo! Got an amen on that one, man. It was the Monster Man.
That's a long thing. Now, granted, we only hear it one seasonally, but you know what? Halloween music is the kind of music that they play it at Halloween. They play it the week of Halloween. Yeah. It's not like Christmas music, which they start playing the week after Halloween.
Well, now you're going to get Christmas music starting probably next week or week after.
Oh, it started here 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, Jackson already opened up the channel, and my wife is up there now watching Hallmark Christmas movies.
Good on her.
Wow.
They've started.
Brother, you need to come into the shop and hang out on a day and get your mind clean with your right now.
No, but I see your point, because that kind of music is not stuff you play at the beach in June. It's seasonal.
Yeah.
A Monster Mash, yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. There was some great horror surf bands out there that did some great stuff. That, fuck it, I play it year round. And it is on my playlist to play year round. So,
and there's a lot of the horror punk bands, the Misfits kind of stuff. There's a great band from Houston. They never got big or anything, but if you see a band called the Grave Robbers, those guys were terrific. I wish they'd gotten big.
No,
they were.
Mainstream groups have also done just albums that were just made based on horror. Tales of Mystery and Suspense by
Mystery and Imagination.
What's that? Oh, yeah.
Tales of Mystery and Imagination, that whole Edgar Allan Poe concept album. Love that. Love that.
Talk about the Cask of Amontillado. The one guy just, please don't do this to me. The other guy just happily singing away as he's laying more bricks.
By the last breath of the four winds that blow, I'll have revenge upon Fortunato. Smiling in his face, I'll say, "Come, let us go. I have a cask of Amontillado." Yes, I had that album in college, and I've continued playing it for 30 years. Now I've got to go dig out my CDs again. Alan Parsons is one of my bucket list interviews that I ticked off several years ago. So,
really good.
Got to talk with him.
I saw them live reviews too, and I saw them live about 4 years ago. Amazing.
It was funny too that you mentioned that, because I had told him during the interview, I was like, when I was in college, I said, "Boy, we should go to an Alan Parsons Project concert," and they're like, "It's concept music. It's all studio produced." And he was like, "Yeah, I mean, I could go there, but what would you watch me do? Flip switches and listen to music." It's not like I'm
going to a rave now. I mean, that's what DJing is. They put the laptop and hit play and just kind of dance behind I wouldn't call it musicianship.
Speaking of Christmas movies, for just a half a second here, we're going to have the cast of Cup of Cheer on here within the next week or so, and it's okay because this is the goring of the Hallmark Christmas movies. This is the National Lampooning of them. You've all seen different genres get the nearly X-rated poking and treatment of every trope they have. This one takes care of the Hallmark movies. Every trope in a Hallmark movie will get skewered and touched in all the inappropriate places. So,
it's long overdue.
Yes.
Like Bad Santa.
Yes. So I wish there was a channel. I'm sure there's a channel. There's Chiller. It's a network. They do the whole thing. But there's so much focus on the Christmas movies now. I know that Halloween, we're not going to go out. My son's 13 by Halloween. He figures he's too old to trick or treat now, and it's cold, and we don't want to go. So we're just going to stay up till midnight and eat a bag of candy that we bought ourselves and watch horror movies till midnight. But I don't know what's the best things to start watching on Halloween now. What are some good horror movies? I will tell you this: at 12 years old, he watched the new version of It and laughed his ass off the entire way.
Yeah,
he's either very well adjusted or not.
Well, only time will tell with that one, Archie.
Don't give him a night for Christmas, okay? So.
No, I'm not in love with that movie the way everyone else is. I didn't think it was so great.
See, I haven't seen either of them, so I am disqualified from having an opinion.
I didn't dislike either one of them. I'm partial to the original one because I remember, I'm a big Tim Curry fan. So hearing that Tim Curry was Pennywise back in those days. But the new one, I didn't dislike the new one at all. It had its moments. It pretty much was verbatim the original one, just remade with a new cast, but they did a good job. Good casting on this one. But RJ, sometimes you just got to just say, you know what, it's Halloween, or stay with the classics, and you watch Halloween. And you watch Halloween 2. And go for 3, Season of the Witch, which has become quite a cult movie now.
It's the oddball. It doesn't fit in with the rest of them.
It doesn't, but it's a brilliant damn movie. It's really great script on it. And then throw in The Conjuring. I want to see how well he handles that. So, right? If he thinks he's so damn tough, don't even tell him anything about The Conjuring, and let's see if he wets his pants or not.
I watched The Conjuring. That one scared me, but I'll watch it again. That entire series of movies has been really good. Do the Universal monster movies still hold up as horror?
I think so. I actually prefer them to a lot of modern horror movies because they're more about like, you know, existential dread, right? Rather than just like jump scares and stuff like that.
Oh yeah, spring-loaded cats don't count.
Yeah, I mean, I just, it's one of those things where, you know, because they're about, you know, they're about the problems in our souls. You know, more
I equate the Universal monsters to like the Beatles or Black Sabbath. So if you're a teenager right now, that may not register with you, but everything you like is influenced by that.
Yeah.
So that's why you need to go back and check it out. You know, is that okay? That makes sense.
Yeah, I get that.
Universe, nothing touches Universal as far as the monsters movies went. I mean, I just recently rewatched all of them. I've got them all on the. I think they were called Legacy Edition.
Yeah,
where they all came in like a green box set, and I revisit it every year, and I scratch my head why Universal can't get their shit together and reboot the industry.
Well,
in a lot of different ways.
I have theories about that, but they are a little political.
Go for it.
That's not allowed in this show.
It's actually more philosophical than political, but I believe that because Universal won't commit to an absolute truth, like any statement of absolute truth, then they can't let their monster movies fly, because their monster movies are built upon existential dread, right? So the idea is about the corruption of the human spirit, right? Well, we have to assume that the human spirit is something worth preserving in order for those movies to have the dread that they need, and because Universal won't commit to that, then there's no power to the genres anymore. So it all becomes something else, right?
You're onto something there, because Universal is one of those companies like Disney and Warner Brothers where they own so much stuff they forget what they own. Universal owns Def Jam Records, the epitome of East Coast hip hop. Why are they not reissuing all of those classic rap albums? Where is the Run DMC box set? Where's the Beastie Boys box set? You know, LL Cool J. There's too much money on the table. Why are they not doing it? I think you're onto something. Then we have to take a side here. You know, about the side of making a profit. That's a pretty good side.
And they can't modernize any of their tales. Like the other day, we put on the Wolfman Benicio del Toro one, and I'm like, why do they have to keep doing period pieces? You can modernize your story and give it a lot of heart, give it a lot of pathos, and attract the kids of today. But they just can't seem to do that.
Well, I think it's because they don't. I mean, like, you take a period piece and you can assume the cultural assumptions of that time, right? So, like, duty and honor and family and those sort of things. Oh, they're so Victorian, they're so outdated. So we'll make this Victorian outdated movie. But if you try to take that into today, then, like, does that even mean anything, right? I mean, screenwriters can they tell the story without having to talk about you know cultural appropriation or
they can. It's the difference between letting the audience choose what they like and telling them what they like. There's a lot of that going on, because you talk about they don't need to modernize stuff and change it around. You know, the Boomerang channel, it's what, like Cartoon Network 2 or something. It's channel 800 on your cable. But there's so many like 8-year-old kids, 10-year-old kids, younger, that love the classic Warner Brothers cartoons. They're timeless. They don't know the backstory on all this stuff. They just like the cartoons. They could totally work for the movie monsters. Stop telling people what to like. That's my issue.
Yeah. And you think about something like Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. I mean, what a great story that was. Even the Wolfman. I mean, there's so much good storytelling in both of those stories. And I think today, sure, you don't have to modernize it, but there's a way to do it where I think it would give the proverbial shot in the arm that Universal needs. I want to see Universal movies. I want to see these films because, you know, I grew up on the early ones. I mean, we were just all talking about Abbott and Costello meet Frankenstein. And my God, how well that film stands up today. There's no way in hell that film could be made today.
because they instead of like, because the thing about it is like people don't understand, like Abbott and Costello, for as goofy and clownish as it is, still maintains this beautiful subtlety with their humor, right?
Yeah.
Where like today they try to cast like a Kevin Hart and Will Ferrell instead. Like nothing against those guys as human beings, they're fine, but Will Ferrell couldn't find subtle in a field empty of everything except subtlety. You know?
And a lot of that stuff is made by committee in the boardroom. I saw an interview with Chris Rock years ago after he left Saturday Night Live and his stand-up really took off. He started getting all these crazy movie a lot of people do, and one of them was they wanted Chris Rock and Samuel L. Jackson to star in the remake of Sanford and Son. And he just looked at him like this is how he got in the Kevin Smith movies, because he just looked at his agent. It's like, are you crazy? That would never work. Do you understand why Sanford and Son was a success? That was the Red Fox show. Neither of us are Red Fox, you know. So next, what else you got?
Another guy from St. Louis.
Oh, yeah.
Herrenberg in the chat saying, hail to Cosmic Dave. Definitely bring back Universal Monsters. They're showing Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein tonight at a drive-in outside Pittsburgh. It's going to be a chilly, chilly night.
Okay, so here's the question is, why are you watching this show instead of driving to the drive-in?
Yeah, right. Be there. I'd rather be there.
Yeah. Don't watch us. Go watch that.
Can we ask Herrenberg when issue number 2 is coming out?
Well, hopefully he's still listening. So, Herrenberg, when is issue number 2 coming out? Tell us in the chat. We want to know about your book here, because I've got it. Dave's selling it. Apparently, he wants to sell more of them. That should be good.
Somebody asked about number 2 yesterday. Guys, great independent comics. These guys are amazing. Great story. Very cool artwork. Highly recommended to everybody on the channel.
And by the way, their comic ties into their live-action episodic stories online that involve the characters from the comic. So there are actors that play out each of the characters in their comic books, all the different heroines in Herrenberg.
That's an awesome like multimedia, very, very cool turn of the century kind of idea. I like it.
Yeah.
So Dave, we'll go back a little bit further than Universal Monsters here, because there's one that really stands out that even today, I don't think the special effects come anywhere near approaching this one. And you probably know where I'm going. Max Schreck in Nosferatu.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Great. Once again, so from what I understand, and Michael, maybe you can interject here, they did not have the rights to call it Dracula. Because of the whole Bram Stoker estate. So they called it Nosferatu. Still, guys, one of the coolest, we're talking, I don't know, Brian, who's talking about the shadows and how shadows work at Universal Motion Pictures. Nothing's going to be better than Nosferatu or even the Cabinet of Caligari. Great, silent, black and white, because they didn't have color, but great. It's all about lighting. And Sue, my wife, and I, who's sitting right next to me, my lovely wife, I always make her watch black and white noir films because the lighting is everything, and it creates an atmosphere, and that's all you need in a movie is atmosphere. Yeah, and then the rest just falls into place.
Oh yeah.
You know, talk about the
head to wear. Go ahead, Michael.
I was going to say, talk about the rights on Dracula. Also makes me kind of wonder. Marvel has supposedly got a Shang-Chi movie in the works, which he was, it was the Bram Stoker thing. All the same things happening with Sax Romner and the rights over Fu Manchu. I'm wondering if they're going to have to rewrite his origin.
Fu Manchu is a weird one that I don't quite understand. I know that he was supposed to be the bad guy in Alan Moore's League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, the comic book series. Mm-hmm. Even though he's Victorian and that old, apparently he has not become public domain.
Yeah. There's something about like there's something about that's weird about his ownership, because he's like parts of the story are public domain because of how they were printed, but not the whole thing. because like DC did a they did a reprint of Detective 27, which had an adaptation, which was just new pictures plus the same text of a portion of it. And I think they were able to do it without having to pay the estate, but the whole thing is like still locked in, and I'm not sure what this whole story on that is.
I think Marvel started using it in public domain when they created the character with Jim Starlin's story and art at the beginning, and then later they had to retract it and all of a sudden just kind of pull Fu Manchu out of the story. But he was a big part of it in the early years of Shang-Chi.
Now, who's writing Shang-Chi, the movie? Do we know? And I asked for Friedman. I don't know if you saw it on well, if you guys are sane, you stay off of Twitter anyway. But Donnie Cates made a tweet today where he said that he had pulled an earlier tweet, and his earlier tweet was that, you know, expressing how much he would love to write the next Blade movie. And then he said he pulled it because he realized it was a stupid tweet, and that the writer of the next Blade movie should be, you know, a person of color.
Well, he would also have to be a vampire. So let's put that.
I think Donnie's had a run of bad luck with stupid tweets lately, hasn't he? I think he probably needs to go outside.
I think he was fine with his first tweet saying he wanted to write it. It was, you know, he had to shove his foot into his mouth in order to pull it out with that second tweet.
Well, I mean, it just, I don't know. Yeah. This comes back to that whole concept of, you know, can we hold anything as true? And if we can't, then it's just, at that point, any kind of truth statement is just nonsense.
It reminds me of when Rob Liefeld in the Image days, he like had a bunch of meetings with Steven Spielberg and Tarantino, all these. So every time he had to like lunch with somebody, they're making my movie, and made all these announcements. All this stuff, none of it ever came out, you know, but that didn't stop him from making these announcements. That's what it smells like to me.
Those were some crazy times with the Image guys. They just got such an influx of money, and they had never had money before because they worked for Marvel. So
there was a really good documentary, like a miniseries or something on the Sci-Fi Channel. It's called "We're Gonna Do Some Damage," and they explained it that pretty much DC, Marvel, First, all of those guys were Chicago or East. It was all an east of the Mississippi affair until them. And they're all from Southern California and have the cushy suburban LA lifestyle. And that's where their different mentality about everything came from. And why they acted so different is they really weren't a part of the legacy like everyone else.
Mm-hmm. Well, I have to, I take a weird place on that too, because I'm from the middle of Nebraska. Well, actually the west end of Nebraska. So I have a whole different outlook than anyone involved in comics.
Well, and there's nobody making comics in Nebraska except you.
Pretty much. The few people that are here, we've sort of absorbed into our little group.
I was trying to think of another horror movie that was, I think it's called Shadow of the Vampire, and I was going to ask Dave about it when he gets back here. It had a very interesting premise, and it was basically about Nosferatu, the movie. And the premise being that Max Schreck, of course, his name in German actually, it means something that I can't remember what it means now. It translates into English. But the movie was that Max Schreck really was a vampire. And Dave, I muted you while you turned your camera off because I could still hear you talking in the background. Didn't know if you wanted us to.
But wasn't that the only movie he made, or one of very few? He did, yeah.
It's the only time I recall Max Schreck was in Nosferatu.
The only reason that I remember his name is because that was the name of the main villain from Batman Returns, right?
Yeah.
Come on, I can't remember the actor's name.
Oh, Dan DeVito, right? Or am I...
No.
Paul Rudd.
I know you said it, but you cut out.
Defoe.
No, Christopher Walken was Max Schreck.
Christopher Walken.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was Selena Kyle's boss.
Yes.
Max Schreck. So
Yeah, no, that's considered William Dafoe's best role was Shadow of the Vampire. He got nominated for an Oscar for that one.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's a good movie, Shadow of the Vampire.
and the idea was that Max Schreck was really a vampire, and that's why that the movie worked so well.
So here's some fun stuff from the chat. Heroberg said Schreck means fright.
Yes, thank you.
Yes, and it's our English word shriek comes from.
Wow.
So there you have it.
Yes,
Fascinating.
Okay, here's your horror-themed scary movie. The guy who directed Shadow of the Vampire, I cannot remember his name. That's why Google exists. But the movie he made before that was called Begotten, which is about the most disturbing movie I've ever seen. I mean, just makes Eraserhead look like Mr. Rogers. It is out.
I've seen Eraserhead, so I can imagine.
Just you got to have nerves of steel to sit through all of Begotten.
That's an amazing statement, Brian.
There is a really disturbing Amazeballs movie coming out real soon here. I've seen the trailer for it. I'm going to get a screener link. It's called Greatland, and it's basically it's the movie that 2020 deserves. I mean, just imagine that every crazy "I want this" protest got it. Got what they wanted. It's the Chad under a bubble of the Truman Show, and everything is rainbows and happiness, and mother provides all the food, and dogs can run for president. A cat is your brother. It's weird. So watch for that when it's going to.
I wanted that. I haven't seen Midsummer yet. The one about the happiness cult that goes off a cliff, but not any good. Oh, no. Really? Okay. Never. Thank you for that heads up.
Yeah.
So my daughter made us watch that. So Sue, myself, and my daughter, and it was 2.5 grueling hours of crap. And when it was over, I looked at her and I was like, okay, I'm an old man. That's 2.5 hours now out of my life. So I'm going to be dying a lot quicker now because you made me watch this.
These remaining hours are becoming a larger and larger percentage of the time we have left.
Exactly. We're wasting it.
And I've heard it's basically. I've heard it's basically. Oh, I was going to say, I've heard it's basically just a remake of The Wicker Man. Is that accurate?
Yeah, it's pretty close. Yeah, okay. There's lots of similarities to it.
I don't mind slow movies. I love There Will Be Blood, but I'm not into bad movies.
Midsummer is one of those movies when you watch it and afterward you're like, what the fuck did I just watch? You know?
It was the way they hyped that up. They made it sound like it's the Sixth Sense meets Gone with the Wind meets Enter the Dragon. No, not quite.
Well, I don't know if this is true because I haven't seen a lot of his pictures, but from what people that I trust have seen Peele's movies, and the theme that I keep getting from people that are critical of Peele is that if he was an unknown director, nobody would talk about his pictures. But because he's Jordan Peele, everyone feels obligated to talk about how great they are because they don't want to badmouth, Jordan Peele.
Okay, I'll do it. The Key and Peele show was a dollar store version of the Chappelle show. There.
Ooh, shots fired.
Yeah, that was about the time Comedy Central was going down the tubes anyway. Just the whole channel just ran out of gas and got abandoned on the side of the highway.
So I was going to ask, since you guys are the comic shop guys and we're supposed to talk about comics at some point, it happens. But since it's horror movies, we've had tons and tons of comic book movies shoved down our throats. And there's so many horror comics out there that have not been turned into movies. With rare exceptions, there's a Sandman movie coming now. I don't know if it's a movie or a series. It's a Netflix series, right?
Yes. Yeah. Yes, that's right.
So I was just, has there been a decent comic book-based horror film since Creepshow?
Ooh,
and Creepshow based on
and we're considering we've covered The Walking Dead already because I consider up until the end was one of the great adaptations.
Which one was it, Brian?
Oh, the Walking Dead minus the last 10% of it.
Okay, all right. I'm going to give you that because you're in Texas.
See, The Walking Dead, the best way to have ended The Walking Dead was to have just ran the last episode, tell nobody it was the last episode, and just say, thanks for watching, guys. And just leave everything.
I guess that my issue with it is they never explained what caused the zombies. It's they just showed up, and then we have to live with it, and then the show's over.
That's a great thing about Romero films. Is that there's really not a quintessential answer to what the fuck's going on. You know, we think it's a meteor, but we're not sure. And there you go.
You know, I saw the very first one, the Night of the Living Dead, the black and white one from the 50s. But didn't that one have something to do with a comet going past or something like that?
Yeah, they vaguely said it was a Venus probe that they sent up to Venus, and when it came back, they think it brought something back with it. But then it was never.
Well, and they never explain it. But the other thing that's great about Night of the Living Dead is that it seems to be over in a night, right?
Yeah.
So like life starts to return to normal, but we know that like it won't really be normal because everyone who survives will have baggage with them of this night that will change them. And so like there's this pregnancy that the movie ends with, and it's tangible and it's wonderful and it's terrifying all at the same time because you know what is man? Like that's the question that it begs, right? And I love it. I love it because it doesn't have the uncertainness of it. Speaks to the uncertainness of ourselves, and I think that's great. But it's also not 9 seasons long, right? It's 2 hours.
Yeah, but then they take that whole idea of what you're saying, and you're right. The movie was back then when it came out in '68. It's such a social commentary of everything that was happening in the unrest in America, the civil rights movement, and everything. But then. Yes, it's supposed to be one night, but then we get Dawn of the Dead, and there's no explanation between night and dawn. And that always kind of pissed me off about Romero, because he's not one of the greatest writers. He was an okay writer, but there's nothing I hate more than loose ends. There's always a way to wrap it up. So, case in point, George Lucas. And I just go off on this quick little tangent and you can take it all over again. Worst fucking writer and director in the world. Okay, now watch the screen just blow up, RJ. What the fuck happened between episode 3 and episode 4? Okay? Anakin becomes Vader. Nothing. For what, 20-something years? Where's that story? Instead, you gave us, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9? No! Where the hell is 3.4 and 3.5
and his ego's so out of control, he didn't do the Admiral Thrawn story because he didn't write that. Someone else did. That's what they should have done.
Yeah.
The Boba Fett story. He gave us some angst-ridden emo kid who was pissed off because Daddy lost his head.
Dave, the problem is to make more Star Wars stories. There's not really a whole lot of Star Wars extended universe books out there to. There's nothing that they've only got a couple of scripts to work off of. If they had like some books, I mean, Kathleen Kennedy has come out and said this. There's just not any material out there to pull off of.
So John Kilgallen, my buddy, and he hit it. Tales from the Crypt, 30 Days of Night. Great graphic novel. And Hellboy.
Hellboy, 30 Days of Night. It hasn't been adapted, but the Coffin by Oni Press, that's begging to become a movie. That would be a great one if someone would do it.
Oh, yeah. And Heroenberg has asked if I saw The Scribbler, which was horror-based with a superpowered character. I have not, but it did remind me of, and I wrote it down because I plan to look it up now, but it did remind me of one that my son watched first because I found it in our checkout list for all the on-demand stuff. I'm like, oh, you watched that? Oh, it's on demand. I can watch it myself. Was Brightburn.
Yeah.
What are our thoughts on Brightburn?
I haven't seen it.
Haven't
Neither
seen
have
it.
I liked it, but
It seems like, I don't know. I guess part of the thing is like I don't feel like we've really gotten a good superhero movie. I mean, Superman movie, you know, in 40 years. So I'm not sure that I want to watch a good. I don't, even if it's great, I'm not sure I'm interested in watching a good evil Superman movie, because that's the ticket, right?
Richard Pryor skiing off a building doesn't count as a good movie.
Oh man, I don't even want to talk about Man of Steel because I will be here all night. Just don't ask me.
Yeah, we're gonna pretend like that didn't happen.
Oh my. Oh, I made myself. I don't even. Never mind. We'll just move past.
well, and we have a lot of monster movies, and when you think of horror movies, horror can mean a lot of things to different people. You say a horror movie, somebody's going to think, oh, we're going to watch a slasher. Somebody's going to think, oh, we're going to watch a monster movie. But neither one is really horror on their own. I mean, you can have a slasher movie, and it could be like an extended episode of Criminal Minds, and you can have a monster movie, and Japan turns out a ton of them that are not horror at all. All the kaiju movies are more adventures against, this large invading creature.
Yeah.
It's more sci-fi.
Yeah.
But then there's people like David Fincher who make his version of mainstream Hollywood movies. Seven is the scariest thing I've ever seen. That one really freaked me out. There's a lot of those that they're not what you think of as horror movies, but oh my Lord, don't watch this with your small children,
Well, yeah. Well, and part of the beauty of Seven.
What's in the box?
Part of the beauty in Seven is that, like, first of all, it's a decent crime procedural, but it's a psychological thriller, right? Where it's just like it really pushes you to like, get into that space of understanding, like, what depravity is and what desperation is, and these things are really, they're only shades removed from our own selves, even though they're extreme and they're gory. They're really, it doesn't take much to push a person. It's like what Alan Moore was trying to do with The Killing Joke, I think.
Yep.
And here's some sci-fi horror.
Sorry.
He double bluffed us. All right. Nicely played, sir. Well played.
Well, and RJ, there's a question that Michael just brings up. How many movies have turned themselves into comic books? Predator, Alien versus Predator, Alien, Hatchet,
almost all of them.
Nightmare on Elm Street, yada yada yada, blah blah blah.
Twilight Zone.
Twilight Zone, one of the originals. Outer Limits, one of the originals. Yeah. So it's more that movies that have Planet of the Apes, perfect example, that have, segued into comic books and successful comic books.
Mm.
Damn it, that's a beautiful mess, Michael. I want that.
Okay, I'm gonna pull it on.
Bob Burns would.
Michael's got all the cool toys. Damn it.
See, that's the thing. You get old enough to make the money to buy the stuff you wanted when you were a kid, which is why I'm sitting in a pile of toys here.
Buy those $200 concert tickets to see Rage Against the Machine. Yeah, I'm not kidding about that.
Some things you can't go back to. Dang it, I had a thought in my head and it flew out while I was.
I had one earlier, and this goes to, I don't know, 30 minutes ago or something. But Mars Attacks. That's a good one.
Talking about comics adaptations, this was over here.
But no, it was about the crowdfunding comics. Hey, there we go. That's a really good one. Look at that.
That's an amazing mask.
Where's that from now?
Doctor Who.
Very, very cool. That's we should have all just masked up for tonight.
Well, I think this is scary enough. I don't like to do more than that.
Yeah.
So my dog just fucking farted awfully. Oh my god! It's enough to make your eyes water. It's terrible.
There's horror.
You want to talk horror?
That's error.
Man. All right. Hey, guys. It's 8:30.
It is. We've gone on a long time.
We've gone and listen to some Michael Cimbella, okay? Because we're both maniacs over here. Get it? Michael Cimbella?
Cimbella. I did that song in high school.
Anybody? Okay. Because everybody else just kind of went right over the head there, okay?
Is Sue a small town girl, a steel town girl?
She's a farm girl.
Okay.
More of a John Cougar kind of chick.
All right. Well,
Hey,
thank you
guys.
for coming on. Appreciate it. We'll convene in 2 weeks, and I think in 2 weeks, if you want to just kind of get some show prep going on here, why don't we talk about political comics, like when Cap ran for office, or all the different satire stuff that's out there,
or Prez,
or the Donald who laughed, right?
Exactly.
And I sell a lot of political stuff in my shop, so
that's why I figured you'd be up for it. So,
all right. Hey, Michael, you might want to go see a doctor about that thing on your. Quit picking at that, man.
I want to know where his head went. I mean, that made his head look smaller.
I know.
That is.
Everybody, happy Halloween to you.
Hey,
Happy Halloween. Thanks for coming. We'll see you in 2 weeks. I hope to see you soon.
Talking with all you guys. Good forum tonight. Thumbs up.
Fantastic.
Thanks for having me on.
All right. And, for everybody still in the chat here, come back tomorrow. We will be talking with Blue Riddle. We'll be going into his book, Gem Heist. And then after that, we will be talking with Dave Swartz about Confederate Monster.
Whoa,
Woo! Yeah, good looking book. And then Tuesday, Cthulhu Invades Oz, an anthology comic. So tune in and join in the discussion. These are all crowdfunded books. And then, of course, Thursday, skipping over Wednesday, we have Jimmy Gownley from Amelia Rules talking about his new book from Scholastic, 7 Good Reasons Not to Grow Up. Been a long time since I talked with Jimmy, so I want to yell at him for not telling me that he was done with Amelia Rules with our last interview and forcing me to find out the hard way. So,
RJ, are you familiar with the new title Butcher Queen?
No.
Okay, I'm going to hook you up with Jim Owsley. He's out of St. Louis. Jim Owsley helped write and co-create Butcher Queen. It just came out Wednesday. I'm going to get you a copy from the shop. It's beautiful, guys. Another one I highly recommend. Independent company. Good stuff. Really good stuff. So come in this week, RJ, and I'll get you a copy. Okay?
I'll do that. Put it in my hold pile.
I got one more thing for us out the door. You had asked me last week, are the crowdfunding comics seeing any price increases in the secondary market? Is there any action that way? This last week, I was at Half Price Books here in Austin. They had an issue of Cyber Frog that came out last year with a variant cover, one of the new crowdfunded ones, behind the counter for $40. So, yeah, I think it's starting to heat up. But we'll visit that in 2 weeks.
All right.
I'm glad to hear that, Brian. That's awesome.
Thanks for coming, everybody, and we will be back in 2 weeks. Thank you in the chat. Appreciate you coming in.